Hi guys, so in this current time, it's really easy for us to write ourselves off as being unproductive and giving ourselves a bit of a hard time, when in reality we're probably more productive than we're giving ourselves credit for. So for me, it's really important just to remember how much we've had to adapt to this current situation and the big changes that we've had to make in our life, which has caused a lot of disruption. So one thing I'm trying to do is to not compare what I'm doing now to what I would have been doing on a normal day, because that's not a fair comparison. So for me, a key part of acknowledging that we are doing okay and we are achieving things daily is our mindset and changing our mindset. So I've got a few statements that are being used a lot at the moment, and just turning these into growth mindset statements. So there's quite a few statements here on the left which can come across as quite negative, and I know I've probably thought each and every one of those, but what I'm trying to do now is flip those and start thinking more towards the statements on the right. So we are all stuck at home, and it is horrible, and I feel quite trapped, but at the same time trying to think, yeah, actually I'm safe at home. I'm staying at home to keep myself and the people around me safe. So the statement, this will never end, at the moment, it feels a lot like that, but we've just got to keep reminding ourselves that this isn't forever. It isn't permanent. This will pass. And we may have a new appreciation for things that before this we would have taken for granted. So, going for that 1 hour walk every day, getting out for some fresh air an hour a day, or we may have picked up some new interests and skills during this lockdown. So we're going to utilise those when this does pass, because it will. It's a temporary thing. So it's important to remember that this will end, and we will come out the other side with new skills, with new interests, and actually that this time has helped us a little bit to make us a little bit stronger. So as much as this is a negative situation, there are a lot of positives that can actually come out of this. So what do we think when we say be productive? Is it learning a new skill? Is it doing a workout, getting all your housework done, clearing out your garden, teaching your kids all day at home, ringing around your family members and friends? So I think, yes, in a sense it is those things, but at the same time you don't have to do all of those things to be a productive person and to have a productive day. So while all of those things could come under the category of being productive, for many people that might be that for the last 2 weeks you've been getting up at 12 o'clock, staying in your pyjamas all day, not really doing a lot around the house, binge watching Netflix, spending a lot of time on social media, and now you're getting up at 10 o'clock, you're getting dressed, you are doing one bit of housework every day, you are using your 1 hour a day to go out for a quick walk around the block, you've sat out your garden for an hour, you've rung around a couple of your friends or checked in with just a few people that you know. That is being productive as well. So you've done things now that you weren't doing 2 weeks ago. So when you get up and you think, I've not done anything today, well, actually you've got up, you've made sure you've showered, you've got dressed, you've gone out for an hour, or you've sat in your garden for an hour, you've spoken to a few people, and you've done the dishes. That is being productive. That is having a productive day. So if we are starting to think, I'd like to try and do more in my day, but I'm not quite sure how to manage it, how to motivate myself to actually do it, then here's just a few pointers that we can start to think about. And I'll go through these in a bit more detail after this. But things like having a routine, setting yourself little goals and targets each day, having a to-do list so you've got something visual to look at, And more importantly, acknowledging what you've done and giving yourself some rewards for things that you do throughout the day. I think that's really important. So when we start to think about how can we be more productive and how can I manage it, then routine can be really helpful in this. So not falling into the time doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter what time I do this or what time I do that. So something you could do is just set yourself alarms on your phone for different things. I know that's something I did in the first few weeks just to help me stick to some sort of routine. So I'll just talk you through a couple of things that are involved in the routine I've given myself. It doesn't mean you have to do any of these, but it's just little things that are helping me. So I'm making sure I'm getting up at a decent time. So I'm not staying in bed, till midday, late afternoon. I am making sure I'm getting up, I'm getting dressed, and I am ready to start my day, whatever that means. I'm making sure I'm eating meals at normal times. So I'm having lunch between 12 and 1 o'clock, and then I'm having dinner between 4 and 6. Just making sure I'm getting those 3 decent meals a day, just so I'm not snacking so much. And it does make me feel a lot better then, and it gives me that structure in my day. I'm allocating myself screen time, so I'm not spending too much time on my phone or in front of the television. I'm trying to do other things rather than be looking at a screen. Then I am making time in the morning to just check in with family and friends, and that doesn't mean that I've got to be on a call for any sort of length of time, but it can just mean a quick text just to check in, just to see how they are doing. Because at a time like this, it's important to stay connected to people. On a normal day, we'd speak to people about what's going on or what plans we had, so we can still do that. And just help people out. In turn, then it'll help you. Then I've been making sure I am doing some sort of exercise a day, and that doesn't have to be an intense workout. That can just be a walk for an hour around where I live, or just sit in the garden for an hour. Just get some outdoor time. If you haven't got a garden, try and sit in some sort of space outdoors. Go for a walk around the block. Just try and get outside, because the fresh air can it really helps and can make you feel a bit better, especially with this this lovely sunshine that we're getting at the moment. And lastly, just making sure that I'm going to bed at a reasonable time, so I'm not staying up until early hours of the morning, because if I do that, then I do struggle to get up the next day. So just making sure that I am in bed and asleep by sort of 11 p.m, making sure I'm getting at least my 8 hours sleep, ready to start my day the next day then. And that doesn't mean that has to be all the time. We all enjoy staying up late now and again, having to lay in. So if it's a Friday night and you do stay up till 12:30 watching a film, that doesn't mean the next day you've got to be up by 8 o'clock. But what it's doing, if you're doing it majority of the week, getting up early, going to bed at a reasonable time, this will become your routine. So when things go back to normal, it's not so much of a challenge then to get back into normality. So those are just some ideas, just some things that I'm doing. So if you're looking to get a routine, then think about those things. And there's a lot of other things that you could include as well. So another thing we can do to help us be a bit more productive in our days is setting ourselves goals or setting ourselves targets. These could be daily targets, they could be weekly. It's entirely up to you. These can be small goals, they don't have to be massive goals. Set them as things that you are comfortable with, and try and use the SMART goals. So make sure they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and that you have set yourself a time frame. Try not to set yourself up for failure by setting unrealistic goals. So, don't set yourself something that you know that you're not going to be able to do within a certain amount of time, because what that can do then is just have a negative impact and actually make you feel like you're not being as productive as you really are. So try and make them achievable as achievable as possible, I guess. Write them down, so you've got them on a piece of paper, you've got them on the notes in your phone, just so you can see them, and you can acknowledge as you're completing these. We talk about putting a time on things. If you go past that time, don't panic, it's okay, we'll just add a bit more time. Sometimes things are a bigger job than what we initially thought. And if it is a big task, then try breaking it down into smaller tasks, because then it will become more achievable. So if you think something's going to be quite difficult, sort of think about how I can make that easier for myself. Can I break it down into smaller jobs, and instead of trying to do it in 1 week, break it down into 5 different little jobs or little tasks, and do it over, a longer period of time, where you are likely to reach those goals then and be successful, which is what we all want in all this. So for me, as well as a routine, to-do lists are key in me getting things done and me having a productive day. If I don't write something down that I need to do, I tend to not do it. And I find that when I go to bed, when I am just trying to drop off to sleep, that's when I start to think about all the things that I should have done today or I should be doing tomorrow. So I try then to write those things down in the notes in my phone, because I know by the time I wake up the next day, I will either have forgotten what I need to do, or I won't write them down because there's probably a few jobs in there that I don't want to do. But I definitely work better when I can see the things, and that way I can sort of prioritise the things as well, the things that are really important for me to get done that day, and the things that probably could wait until the next day. So I quite like to colour code things on a to-do list, so I'll highlight things that are quite urgent for me to do, and I try and do those as quickly as possible, and try and prioritise those. But things on your to-do list, it doesn't have to be, all your housework, so it doesn't have to be full of do the dishes, do the washing, hoover, clean the bathroom. It doesn't have to be things like that. It can be, right, today I'm going to make sure I drink at least 2 litres of water. I'm going to make sure I have 3 meals. And you can write down the 3 meals and tick them off as you go along. So what I would say is either the night before or first thing in the morning, set yourself a to-do list of things that you should be doing that day and you need to do, and just work through them. And sometimes we will fail and we don't go around our plan like we should, and some things don't work the way we wanted or that we hoped for. So we might find that sometimes a task that we planned to finish in a day turns out it's quite difficult or requires a bit more time, and that can make us feel quite frustrated or feel like we have failed. But if we just sort of open to ourselves and tell ourselves that this task is not impossible, it just needs a bit more time, and at the moment that's something that we have. So if that happens, we just relax and we allow ourselves a bit more time to complete that task. Because to be productive, I think we need to avoid becoming frustrated with ourselves, and just give ourselves a bit more credit. But something I've recently been doing, and it's thanks to Hannah, our behaviour support in our schools programme, is I've been doing a to-do list and a to-da list. So I sat in on a session with Hannah, and she actually talked to a group about this. So a to-do list is things that she plans on doing and it's intended for that day, and then she ticks them off as she goes along. And then her to-da list is things that she hadn't really planned to do but she's done anyway. So for example, if you hadn't planned on painting the fence in your garden, or you hadn't planned on doing the washing that day, or going for a 30-minute walk, then write that on your to-do list. So everything that you didn't necessarily plan on doing, when you look back at the day you've just had, then it's like, ta-da, like, look what I've done. And for me, when I feel a bit low and feel like I haven't done a lot in a day, when I write things down and start listing things that I've actually done, it can make me feel really good and think, oh my God, I've actually really achieved something today. And look at all the things I've done that I didn't necessarily have to do or intend on doing that day. So definitely use a to-do list, and thanks to Hannah, use a to-do list. Because that will definitely show you that you are being more productive than you actually think. And then something that's really important is that we acknowledge what we've achieved. So after doing your to-do lists, setting yourself your targets for a routine, if you've sort of drawn up a chart of timings that you want to do things, we can tick things off as we go along. And then before we go to bed, just check your list. And if you find that you've completed more tasks than you'd actually set out to do first of all, and definitely with your to-do list, then reward yourself. Give yourself a reward, because when we reward ourselves, our mind, it gains pleasure from that, and it makes us feel happy. And in turn, that will then trigger your mind and you to become more motivated. And this motivation will help you when you set out to do other things then. So the satisfaction you feel from completing this and seeing it visually, it will help you become more productive as the weeks go on. So definitely acknowledge and celebrate, what you've achieved that day, because times are tough, but actually, I bet you're doing more than you give yourself credit for. So definitely acknowledge what you've achieved and reward yourself each day. So I hope this sort of session has helped you to think of things that can help you become more productive. It's definitely things that I use every day to help me. But I think it's important as well that you remember, and we remember, that we are human, and it's okay to have an off day where we don't complete as many tasks on our to-do list, or we don't get up as early as usual. These are really tough times, and we just need to remember each day that we are doing amazing things, and we are allowed to have unproductive days. We're human. So, don't beat ourselves up. Celebrate that we're getting through this incredibly challenging time, one day at a time, because that's all we can do. So just remember that it's okay to have unproductive days, but don't let that be a majority. Let's try and have 5 productive days and 2 unproductive days, and try not to let all that's going on just consume us and put a dampener on our mood. There's something good that we can take from each day.